To tell us more about the educational system in the country, joining us is UNICEF Philippines Deputy Representative Behzad Noubary. Behzad, great to have you with us. We saw those series of reports on the opening of school today. Lots of problems, less enrollees, not enough teachers, not enough classrooms, not enough school materials, students traveling 1 hour to get to their classrooms. What is the state of Philippine education at this point?
Thank you, Rico, for having UNICEF on the show. Rico, last time we were together was 2 years ago during the pandemic, around the same time, where we were talking about the fact that Filipino students would not be going to school when millions of others around the world would be. So I think it's important to recognize that we're in a much better place now. Since last year, we've opened the schools for full in-person learning, and again this year. In terms of your question about the state of Filipino education, I think from where we sit at UNICEF, we see great improvements in terms of access to education. More and more children are in school, especially at elementary level. We're at over 90% enrollment rates and parity between boys and girls.
However, and I think we've seen that in the photos, right?
Absolutely.
In the videos, tens of thousands of boys and girls so enthusiastic to get back into full-time schooling after the pandemic.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to see how happy the parents are, the students are, and how ready the teachers are to receive them. The issue that we see going forward is really about the quality of education. So the kids are in school, but are they learning?
Yes.
And there we have some reasons for concerns. In 2019, UNICEF conducted what is called the Southeast Asia Primary Learning Matrix. A number of countries in Southeast Asia, including the Philippines. We tested fifth graders on the basic competencies, and we found that 9 out of 10 fifth graders could not read at the level that was expected, and not much better on the mathematics side. That's why we welcome the new revised curriculum for K-10, which is decongesting the curriculum and really focusing on the foundational learning. UNICEF is ready to support, and we're supporting developing the lesson models for that, and really see that the direction is the right one to go to really focus on the foundation.
But it will take time to really implement the K-10 curriculum. So at this point, with all of these issues hounding Philippine education, and even grade 5 students cannot read, are we in a learning crisis?
I think that we are in a learning crisis, not only in the Philippines, but in many countries around the world. One area where we see room for improvement is on early childhood education, on ECE. Here I'm talking about preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds, and of course kindergarten for 5-year-olds. Here we see the Philippines lagging behind. And preschool, so I'm talking about the 3 and 4-year-olds, we're seeing only 28% of 3 and 4-year-olds in preschool. And for kindergarten, which is mandated by law, as you know, only about 78% are attending. So if we can increase that, we would see immediate improvements in terms of success of students in primary learning. If I could share with you a really interesting study. UNICEF, with the Department of Education, with support from the Australian government, we followed a cohort of 3,000 students in the Philippines for over 5 years, from the time they were in kindergarten until they got to grade 4. And we tested them, the same cohort, every year. What we saw is that the kids who were in preschool did better year after year, even up to grade 4. So it really, really makes a big difference to invest in the early years, in preschool, for the 3-year-olds, for the 4-year-olds, in order to make sure that they have the best chance for success when they get to primary.
And Behzad, these numbers that you just mentioned are indeed very concerning, especially among the most vulnerable and marginalized in the Philippines. But you mentioned a very important word there, investment. Is the government making that investment for early childhood education?
It is making an investment, but we think that it could do more. As you know, in the Philippines, preschool, I'm talking about for 3 and 4-year-olds, is not under the mandate of the Department of Education. It is the responsibility of the local governments. And because of that, perhaps we see that there is uneven investment. There are some LGUs where what we call daycare centers, the preschools, are not available. So this is something that perhaps could use some standardization across the country, as well as while on the demand side, we see also that parents don't necessarily understand the need to put their children in preschool.
So when you talk about standardization and kindergarten not included, in the national government's strategy program. So are you working with both the national government and the local government units to be able to standardize the system?
Let me be clear. Kindergarten is a part of the curriculum. K-10 and K-12 is part of the undergrad. I'm talking about preschool for three and 4 year olds, which is the responsibility of the local governments and under the ECCD Council. So there, we are working, of course, with the local government in terms of improving that. One of the main issues that we see is in terms of what they call the child development workers, the CDWs. What the studies that have been done show that their pay is quite low, on average less than 10,000 pesos per month, that they have different levels of qualification, and of course that has an effect on the quality of preschool that is offered. At the same time, as I mentioned, there's also a demand issue. Parents don't necessarily see 3 and 4 year olds perhaps as being too young, but that's not the case. We know that they're ready for group settings, for socialized education. And so also working on the demand side, educating parents on the need to start preschool is also very important.
What about this new K-10 curriculum, which you were talking about earlier? When do you think it will have an impact on the Philippine educational system?
It will take time, as you said, and in order to do it right, we need to take the time. As the Department of Education has indicated, they'll be rolling it out in a phased manner. This year, it will be piloted, and as UNICEF, will be supporting that, because it will be important that we get it right. Curriculum reform is not something that happens overnight, but it's an investment that's worth making.
But working with the Department of Education and with Secretary Duterte and the LGUs, are you seeing the political will to support education on both national and local levels?
Absolutely. We're seeing the political will. I think the fact that the Vice President has taken on the role of Secretary of Education is a testament to that. And the steps that she has taken in terms of opening full in-person learning, in terms of curriculum reform, we feel are a step in the right direction, and we stand ready to support that.
And the bottom line, Behzad, is to ensure equitable access to education and improve education outcomes for all Filipinos.
Absolutely. And it's also really important to get parents engaged. The study that I mentioned before also showed that the families that had, the kids that were in families that had parents engaged in their children's education did much, much better. And so taking the time, I know that a lot of your audience here are parents, I'm a parent myself, taking the time to take interest in your child's education makes a huge difference. Asking what happened that day, what was your favorite thing today, what are you learning, opening that channel of communication with the parents, making a tandem, really, really makes a big difference for a holistic education for children.
Getting involved in their lives and in their education. Behzad Noubary, UNICEF's Deputy Representative, thank you so much for your insights.